Why are Viltrumites so violent? Like, think about it. These guys just don't fight. They conquer, they dominate, they wipe out entire civilization without hesitation. So what is it? Is it their DNA? Or is it something they're taught? Because the answer is way more uncomfortable than you think. So let's start with what we know. Viltrumites aren't just strong. They're raised to believe one thing. Strength is everything. If you're weak, you don't deserve to exist. Now, Hitler's ideology, Nazism, was built around the idea of a superior race. The strong should rule. The weak should be eliminated. That's literally Viltrumite philosophy. The only difference is Viltrumites can actually back it up physically. But here's where it gets deeper. Was that mindset genetic or was it taught? Because if you look at Viltrumite history, they didn't start as conquerors. They became that way after a brutal internal purge, where only the strongest survived. Viltrumite's way of living is basically an extreme version of something called social Darwinism. The idea that survival of the fittest should apply to human society. Which is exactly what William Graham Sumner argued, that government aid to the poor interfered with quote-unquote natural selection. According to him, he believed that helping the quote-unquote weak would only allow them to reproduce and eventually weaken society as a whole. In ancient Sparta, warriors were trained from childhood. Weak babies, well, they were abandoned. Children are raised to fight, endure pain, and suppress emotions. Not because they were born violent, but because their entire system forced them to become that way. That's basically Viltrumite parenting, just with way more flying and planet destruction. So now we're seeing a pattern. Violence isn't just genetic, it can be engineered. But wait, let's not ignore biology completely, because Viltrumites do have insanely powerful bodies. They heal fast, they age slowly, they're built for combat. So imagine this. If humans suddenly had the power level of someone like, let's say, Thrag, or hell, even just Invincible, would we stay peaceful? Or would people, like some people, start thinking, why should I listen to anyone weaker than me? Lord Acton, a 90th century British historian and moralist, once said, power tends to corrupt, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. Viltrumites? Well, they're basically absolute power as a species. So instead of one corrupt leader, you get an entire race that sees domination as normal. It's kind of like how the Taliban operates, an entire government that twists the words from their book of God to fit their motives. Now here's the twist. The most interesting Viltrumites isn't the violent ones. It's Nolan, aka Omni-Man, because he changes, and that's important. If violence was purely genetic, change wouldn't be possible. But Omni-Man starts questioning everything after living among humans. He forms relationships, he develops empathy, which means Viltrumites aren't just products of their DNA, they are products of their environment. According to John B. Watson in 1930, that if he were given a dozen healthy infants, he would train any one of them to become any type of specialist, doctor, lawyer, or a thief, regardless of their talents or ancestors. That is literally the case with Viltrumites. Nature versus nurture. Are we born a certain way or shaped by what we experience? Because of Hitler, after World War II, countries like Germany had to completely rebuild their identity. The same nation that once followed extreme ideology shifted towards democracy and peace, which proves something important. Even deeply ingrained systems can change. So imagine this. If a Viltrumite was raised on Earth from birth with human values, would they still become violent? Or would they become something else entirely? Because here's the uncomfortable truth. Viltrumites aren't just scary just because they are strong. They're scary because their mindset isn't completely alien. It's human. just pushed to the extreme. The desire for dominance, the belief in superiority, the justification of violence for a greater good. In that logic, Viltrumites are literally the KKK, but with strength that can move entire planets from one place to another. So, are Viltrumites violent because of the DNA? Partly. Their bodies make violence easy. But the real reason? Their culture, their history, their belief system. And that might be the most disturbing part, because if you took their power and gave it to us, would we really be any different? Yeah, maybe the question isn't why Viltrumites are violent. Maybe it's why humans, given the same power, might become exactly the same or even just worse.